Laura showed up at her daughter's 5th birthday party after a really tough divorce. She wasn't there to make trouble, not at all. She just wanted to see her little girl, even for a moment. Laura brought one small, simple gift, quietly hoping to hug her daughter just one time. But then, right in front of everyone, her ex-husband's mom, Madame Nicole, crushed the gift and totally shamed Laura. That's when a surprising rich guy stepped in. The same guy Laura had helped out a long time ago with a simple act of kindness. And just like that, everything changed. Happy sounds filled the air from a colorful tent where balloons floated around. A big sign above the gate read, "Happy 5th birthday, Daisy." Nearby, kids bounced excitedly on a bright, bouncy castle, yelling with joy. A funny clown in a bright costume juggled and danced, making the little ones around him giggle. The whole party looked super fun and festive. Laura stood outside the fence, her heart beating fast. She held a small pink gift bag tight against her chest. Inside was a handmade bracelet she'd made herself, with tiny beads that spelled her daughter's name, Daisy. Laura knew she wasn't invited. She knew it, but she came anyway. It had been 7 long, hard months since she last saw Daisy. 7 painful months since the court said she wasn't a good mother. Her ex-husband Mike and his mom, Madame Nicole, had taken Daisy away from her. All Laura had left were memories and the hope of seeing her little girl, even for a second, on her birthday. Laura quietly walked in through a side gate. She didn't want any drama. She just wanted to give Daisy the bracelet and show her that her mom still loved her. Laura looked around the party. There she was, Daisy in a fluffy purple dress, spinning in circles, her cheeks covered in cake frosting. She looked so happy, so innocent. Laura's eyes filled with tears. She took a small step closer. "What are you doing here?" A sharp voice cut through the air. Everyone turned. It was Madame Nicole. She was tall, cold, and looking very important. She walked toward Laura, anger in her eyes. "You were told not to come anywhere near this family again," she snapped. "You are not welcome. You are not wanted." Laura took a deep breath and said softly, "I just came to give Daisy a gift. That's all." She held out the pink bag carefully. Her eyes quickly looked at Daisy again. Her little girl was still playing near the cake table, not knowing the big problem happening just steps away. But Madame Nicole wasn't moved. She sneered and looked down at the gift. "You think this cheap thing will get you back into her life? You are nothing, Laura. You lost your spot when Mike left you. You are not Daisy's mother anymore." Laura trembled. She saw the party guests watching. Some looked uncomfortable. Others pulled out their phones. Nobody helped her. "I don't want to fight," Laura whispered. "I just made this bracelet for her birthday." Madame Nicole stepped closer, her heels clicking loudly. Her pearls shined in the sun, but her face stayed cold. Then, with no warning, she smacked the gift bag out of Laura's hand. The bracelet rolled onto the ground. Laura gasped and quickly knelt to pick it up. Smash! Madame Nicole stepped on it with her heel. The bracelet broke into tiny pieces. Laura froze. Her heart broke all over again. Tears ran down her cheeks as she knelt silently, gathering the shattered pieces of the only gift she had left to give. With shaking hands, she picked up the tiny beads one by one, her fingers brushing the grass, her eyes blurry with sadness. The guests watched. Still, no one moved. No one helped. "Clean up your mess and leave," Madame Nicole said meanly. Laura looked up. Mike, her ex-husband, was watching from the drink stand, his arms crossed. Olivia, his new wife, whispered something to him. He briefly looked at Laura, showing no feeling, not a word, not even a hint of sympathy. He saw everything. He said nothing. Laura stood up slowly. Her knees were dusty, her dress wrinkled. "I'll go," she said, her voice quiet. "I don't want to ruin the party." She turned toward the exit. No one tried to stop her. But just before she reached the gate, a voice spoke up. That was a really mean thing to do. The voice wasn't loud, but it made everyone stop. It came from the back of the garden. A man stood there, tall, dressed nicely in a dark suit, his hair neat, his eyes calm but strong. He stepped forward, looking straight at Madame Nicole, not Laura. "Oh, you didn't step on that bracelet because it was worthless," he told Madame Nicole. "You stepped on it because your heart is." Gasps echoed through the garden. "Who are you?" Madame Nicole snapped. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked over to Laura and gently picked up the broken bracelet beads from her hand, holding them like they were precious gold. He turned them in his palm, quietly looking at the damaged gift. "This was made with love," he said softly, "and it was destroyed in front of everyone. Just to be mean?" Laura blinked, unable to speak. Madame Nicole crossed her arms. "You don't know her. You have no idea who you're sticking up for." Finally, the man looked up. His voice stayed calm. "Actually, I do," he said. He now stood tall right beside Laura. 10 years ago," he told the crowd, "this woman gave me food when I had nothing. She looked me in the eye when I was a nobody. She didn't know who I'd become. She just cared." He turned back to Laura, his eyes gentler now. "You might not remember me, but I remember you." Laura's lips parted in confusion. He smiled gently. "My name is Ben." Laura's mouth dropped open in shock. She whispered, "I don't remember." Ben nodded. "That's okay, but I remember every word you said, and today I'm standing here because no one deserves to be shamed for loving their child." He reached out his hand. Laura paused, then she took it. For the first time that day, someone was really on her side. Ben turned to the crowd. "How many of you watched what happened and stayed quiet?" People shifted uncomfortably. "Being kind," he said, "shouldn't be harder than staying silent." He turned back to Madame Nicole. "Your money doesn't give you the right to ruin other people. You tried to make Laura disappear, but I see her, and I won't let her be shut up again." The crowd was shocked. Ben turned to Laura. "Would you like to give Daisy her gift?" Laura looked down at the crushed bracelet. Only a few beads were still on the string. The rest were broken. "It's ruined," she whispered. Ben smiled. "Even broken things can be beautiful, especially when they're made with love." He handed her the broken bracelet. They walked together toward the cake table. The crowd moved out of their way. From across the garden, Daisy looked up and saw them. She ran straight into Laura's arms. "Mommy!" Laura dropped to her knees and hugged her tightly, quietly crying. "Why are you crying, Mommy?" Daisy asked. "Because I'm so happy to see you, sweetie." Ben stood back, watching. Madame Nicole stepped forward, really mad. "This isn't your special moment. You're confusing the kid." Laura started to speak, but Ben stepped in again. "Actually, Daisy needs to know her mother came even when she wasn't wanted. That's true love, and that's what she'll remember." Laura looked at Ben with tears in her eyes. He smiled. "You're not alone anymore." Later that evening, Laura sat on the pavement outside the party place. Her knees were pulled up to her chest. Her dress was wrinkled, the bottom dirty from kneeling. She still held the broken bracelet in her hand. Inside, music played. Kids laughed, but her daughter was gone. The special moment was over. Laura shook as she tried to hold back her tears. The pain wasn't new, but today had really hurt her again. Then a gentle voice came beside her. "You shouldn't be out here like this." It was Ben. He had left the party just to sit with her. Laura quickly wiped her face. "You don't have to be here." "Maybe not," he said softly, "but I want to be." He sat beside her on the pavement. They didn't say anything for a while, just shared the quiet. Then Laura looked at him and asked, "You said we met before, but I still don't remember." Ben smiled and reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small folded piece of paper, old and worn. He handed it to her. Laura opened it slowly, holding her breath. It said, "Wishing you a better tomorrow. You matter." It was her own handwriting. Her memory came back. Years ago, she had given food to a homeless man sitting in the rain outside a cafe. She had written that note and slipped it inside. "You kept this?" she whispered. "I carried it every day," Ben said softly. "That note reminded me I was still a person. It gave me the strength to get back up, to believe I was worth saving. And today, I'm a successful man because of you, because of the kindness you showed a stranger, when you had nothing to gain. Laura covered her mouth, tears forming again, not from sadness this time, but from how big the moment felt. "Why today?" she asked. He looked at her gently. "Because I finally found you, and I wasn't going to lose you again." Laura sat quietly beside Ben, holding the note tightly. Her heart felt full, heavy with feelings she hadn't let herself feel in a long time. Hope, warmth, being respected. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Oh, you don't have to say anything," Ben replied gently. "Just let me give back your kindness. Just for today." He reached out his hand. "Come with me to somewhere warm." Laura hesitated. Then she looked at him, the man who didn't have to care but did. She took his hand, and for the first time in a very long time, she felt truly seen. The drive was quiet. Laura sat in the passenger seat of a sleek black SUV, with Ben driving. The city slowly passed by, shops closing for the evening. The glow of car lights began to show in puddles. She held the slightly damaged gift box on her lap, still not knowing what to say. Ben didn't force her to talk. He just drove, the soft hum of the engine and the occasional click of the blinker filling the silence. Finally, he turned into a quiet street, lined with trees and normal-looking homes. At the end was a fenced area with a single-story house, clean, modern, and peaceful. He stopped the car, got out, and walked around to open her door. Laura hesitated. "You really don't have to do all this." Ben smiled gently. "You already did it for me. I'm just paying you back 10 years later." He led her inside. The house was warm and softly lit. It smelled like coffee and books. A gentle breeze came in through a half-open window. Laura stood in the doorway, feeling a bit overwhelmed by the quiet comfort. "This is beautiful." Ben set down his keys and offered her a seat. "It's not huge, but it's mine, and it's open to anyone who needs peace." Laura sat on the edge of a couch, unsure if she should really be there. Ben came back with 2 mugs of tea and sat across from her. "You look like someone who hasn't really rested in a long time." Laura laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because it was true. "I haven't," she admitted. "Not since they took Daisy. Not since the court said I wasn't good enough." Ben's brow wrinkled. "You lost custody?" Laura nodded. "Mike's family. They had better lawyers, more money, and more power. They said I was unstable, that I didn't belong in Daisy's life." "And your ex-husband? He let them?" Laura looked down. "He stopped fighting for me the moment his mother spoke against me. He married someone new within the year." Ben leaned back, watching her quietly. "That day at the cafe, I was ready to give up, but your kindness kept me going. I promised myself if I ever saw you again, I'd stand up for you the way you stood up for me." Laura couldn't speak. Her eyes filled with tears again. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked. "Because you gave me a reason to live," he said. "Now, I want to help you get your daughter back." The next morning, Laura woke up in a clean guest room. Her clothes had been washed. The broken bracelet was now taped together and placed gently on the table. Ben walked in holding 2 folders. "I made some calls," he said. "My legal team wants to help reopen your case, completely free, no cost at all." Laura blinked in disbelief. "Ben, you don't have to." "I want to," he said firmly. "You didn't have power in that courtroom before, but now you have me." Soon, a strong lawyer named Victoria joined them. She looked at Laura's case and said, "They didn't win with truth, they won with sneaky tricks. But we're going to fix this." They started gathering every piece of proof they could find. Receipts, voice messages, and stories from people who saw how Nicole treated Laura during the marriage. Ben even hired a private detective. What he found changed everything. The doctor's report used to say Laura was unstable in court. That doctor was connected to Nicole's family company. "That's clearly not fair," Ben said quietly. And no one told the court about it. Ben wasn't just helping in court. He helped her heal, too. Every morning he left small notes for Laura. "Daisy still needs you. This is not your end. You are doing better than you think." She didn't know how he found the words, but they reached her like sunlight through cracks in a wall. He never pushed her. He never felt sorry for her. He just showed up again and again. One day, Laura walked past a spare room in Ben's house and stopped. Inside, it had been turned into a child's bedroom with books, toys, a pink lamp, and a bunny on the bed. "You made this for Daisy?" she asked, tears in her eyes. "She'll need a space of her own when she visits," Ben said. "But what if we lose?" Laura whispered. "Then we keep fighting," he replied. "But you don't plan for failure, Laura. You plan for what you deserve." Laura looked around the room. For the first time in years, she let herself believe that maybe things could actually change. The courthouse was a gray, square building, the kind of place where Laura's hope had died before. She had walked out of here over a year ago, with nothing but sadness and shame, called a bad mother, unstable, and not good enough. Now she stood at those same steps again. But this time, she wasn't alone. Ben was beside her, dressed in a dark blue suit, calm and steady. His lawyer, Victoria, walked ahead of them with a fierce look in her eyes, carrying a thick folder full of proof. Laura adjusted her blazer, the one Ben had bought for her. He had said softly, "Walk in there like you belong, because you absolutely do." Inside, the courtroom was filled with quiet talking and echoes. Mike sat on the other side, his face hard to read. Beside him, Nicole sat in her usual fancy clothes, her lips tight, her eyes burning with quiet anger. Laura took a deep breath. Then the judge walked in. Everyone stood, then sat. Victoria stepped forward. "Your Honor," she began, "we asked to open the custody case again. The first decision was made unfairly because of lies." She held up documents. "The doctor who said Laura was unstable? He's linked to Madame Nicole's family company. They gave money to his clinic. This important information was not told to the court." Gasps filled the courtroom. "But we also have a new report from a trusted court doctor," Victoria added. "It shows Laura is mentally stable, responsible, and still deeply loves her daughter." The judge turned to Laura. "Would you like to speak?" Laura stood. Her heart beat fast, but her voice was clear. "Last time I stood here, I was judged because I didn't have money, because I cried, because I loved too much. But I've never stopped being Daisy's mother." She turned to Mike, her eyes firm. "You promised to protect me, but when they tore me down, you said nothing." She turned back to the judge. "I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I just want to show my daughter that I never stopped fighting for her." The courtroom fell silent. Then the judge said, "There's a strong reason to believe the first decision was unfair. I'm allowing Miss Laura Jacobs to visit her daughter right away, with someone watching. A full review of who gets custody will happen later. We must not let money hide the truth." Laura gasped. Nicole froze. Mike looked away, ashamed. And under the table, Ben reached for her hand. She held it tightly. Outside the courtroom, cameras flashed, reporters shouted. But Laura didn't care. She looked up at the sky, the same sky that had watched her suffer, and whispered, "I'm still her mother, and no one can take that away ever again." Ben smiled beside her. "You did it." Laura turned to him, tears in her eyes. "No, we did it." A year later, in a bright green park full of balloons and handmade signs, Daisy ran happily across the grass, full of laughter and light. The court had given Laura full custody. Her daughter was finally home, not just in her arms, but truly back in her life where she belonged. A big sign read, "Daisy's 6th birthday with Mom." Laura stood in the middle of it all, wearing a light blue dress. Her hair was softly pulled back, and for once her smile came easily. She didn't have to force it. Joy kept growing inside her like sunshine. Daisy ran toward her with frosting on her cheeks, a balloon string in one hand, and a paper crown sliding off her head. "Mommy, look what I made." Laura bent down and picked her up. "It's beautiful, just like you." Not far away, Ben stood under a tree, holding a tray of juice boxes. He wore a white shirt and watched the moment like he'd waited his whole life to see it. Laura caught his eye, and he nodded. They didn't need words. He had helped make this moment real. Then, something unexpected happened. At the edge of the park, Mike and Madame Nicole showed up. They stood just outside the fence, looking unsure and out of place. Mike held a small gift wrapped in silver paper. Nicole stood straight and quiet. her eyes serious. Mike stepped forward. "Laura, we came to say something." Nicole took a breath and said, "I was wrong about you, about everything." Laura's face stayed calm. "You shamed me. You took my child. You tried to erase me." Nicole looked down. "I know. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope you'll let us try to do better, for Daisy's sake." Laura looked at her daughter, laughing and playing in the grass. Then she turned back and said softly, "I forgive you, but I'll always remember how much it cost me." She looked at Ben. "Because through all that pain, I found something stronger than getting back at you." She paused, then added, "I found family." Mike had nothing to say. Nicole wiped a tear. Laura turned back to the party. The music played again. Kids laughed. The wind moved gently through the trees. Laura looked at Ben and whispered, "This is her real birthday, her true beginning." Ben smiled. "And yours too." They stood together, a mother, a daughter, and a man who helped her heal. They weren't related by blood but by love and choice. The music got louder. The joy grew. Laura smiled, like a woman who had finally found her way home. Later that day they walked through the park hand in hand. The sun was warm, the breeze was soft. They passed a bench where Laura had once sat alone, dreaming of seeing her daughter again. She stopped and said, "I used to come here and pretend I wasn't falling apart." Ben asked gently, "And now?" Laura watched Daisy skip ahead, laughing. "Now I know I made it." They sat on the grass. Daisy handed Laura a cinnamon bun. "Mommy, I saved the biggest one for you." Laura laughed and hugged her tight. "Thank you, my sweet girl." As Daisy chased butterflies, Laura turned to Ben and said, "I used to think family meant only blood relatives or being married. But now I know family is who stays, who believes in you, who says you belong." Ben nodded. "And you became the kind of woman who helps others believe again." He handed her a small card. Laura opened it. It read, "You are already enough." She closed her eyes and breathed in deeply. She wasn't broken anymore. She had been put back together with love, with faith, and with people who never gave up on her. As night fell, they walked home. Daisy was in the middle, holding both their hands. They didn't look like a perfect family from a television show, but they were something better, a family they chose. A love built on trust, a story that turned pain into peace. The stars came out, and under their light, they walked forward together. Thank you all for watching. Kindly subscribe, like, and comment on the lessons you learned from the story. Another amazing story will be up this week. See you all then.